is Labor MP Julian Hill and Liberal MP Keith Wolahan. Keith, thanks, and Julian, thanks so much for your time. Keith, starting with you, do you agree with Opposition Leader Peter Dutton's call not to name climate targets ahead of the election?
I do, because you've got to do the work about this. This is a complex problem. Decarbonising the economy is a challenge not just faced by Australia, but the United States and the EU. And what we are seeing is that none of those three are going to meet the 2030 targets, especially in a cost of living crisis when electricity is the sector that is hit hardest. So this transition is incredibly complex. You've got to do the modelling, you've got to do the work, and you can only do that when you're actually in government with all of the resources. Simply giving a target before an election like Labor did and then not achieving it is not helping this problem, and that is the source of climate wars, not actually solving the problem. Was
it a captain's call, though? Did it go through the coalition party room?
I think what the captain's call was the headline. That the headline, which we saw run in the last few days or over the weekend, was just misleading. We saw headlines saying that the coalition were pulling out of Paris, which is not true. We are committed to Paris. We are committed to net zero. But it was if the Labor and the Teals, they were overjoyed to see that headline by one newspaper, and they ran it. It was incorrect, and none of them have corrected it. They haven't corrected it. And I think people are sick of this sort of rhetoric on this issue. They want us to focus on engineering and science, not on belief and rhetoric.
Julian, what's your response to all that?
Oh, look, if I had to summarise it in one emoji, I'd say the face palm. Like, for goodness sake, honestly, I say to Keith with respect as a mate, that's pathetic. You want to be the alternative government, then you have to do the policy work. That's how our democracy works. The only commitment this mob have to Paris is to getting on a plane and pissing off to play footsie with the far right. I mean, let's be clear. This is not an energy policy. This is not an announcement. This is a distraction because Peter Dutton has one job to try and save his job within the coalition party room. Now, Bridget Archer, give her due, she was at least honest. She said what a lot of them quietly are muttering and thinking. This is regressive and it's all over the shop. You know, let's be clear also. The government is not backing in renewables on some ideological crusade. It's because they're the cheapest form of renewable energy for Australia. Nuclear power is a fantasy. Keith knows it, you know it, the scientists know it, the economists know it, and Australians will know it. And if they don't, they sure will by the election. Under the coalition's watch, you know, Keith talks about being in opposition and it's all too hard to do policy. Under the coalition's watch, when in government, 24 out of 28 of Australia's coal-fired power stations announced they were going to close. And yet they did nothing. Absolutely nothing. The only risk of a nuclear meltdown, to be honest, is the R word. When you say renewables, the coalition party room melts down. That's what this is about. It's sad and it's not in Australia's national interest. We've got to seize that cheap renewable energy and regain our advantages in manufacturing. It'll underpin and power the future made in Australia.
Can I just ask another thing? Keith, the Chinese Premier Li Qiang is in Australia from Saturday. What are you hoping to see as a result from this visit?
Yeah, this is an important visit. There's two aspects to it. The first is that as a member of an electorate that has one of the largest Chinese diaspora in Australia, on the draft boundaries I will be the largest, so many of my community have small and medium businesses that engage in trade with China. So a return to normality of having those restrictions lifted and acknowledging the importance of that trade is vital to our country and to my community. But I think on the other hand, you can also have frank conversations about some of the concerns about the near misses that have occurred, particularly against our ADF. And as a mature country, we can do those in a respectful and productive way, and I look forward to that happening. In fact, I'm attending an event where the Premier will be there too, and I look forward to meeting him.
Okay, Keith Wolahan, Julian Hill. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us on the program today.